It has been over 40 years since Karen Carpenter died at the age of 32, and the chasm she left behind has never been filled. A virtuosic drummer with a sweet, melancholic singing voice, she and her brother Richard Carpenter conquered the easy listening charts with melodically sophisticated hits. Even President Richard Nixon was a fan and invited the Carpenters to the Oval Office in 1972. Karen Carpenter's life is a pioneering woman within the male-dominated recording industry. Sadly, the music superstar was just 32 years old when she succumbed to this disease. Before her death, Karen's life was far from easy as she struggled with her illness and the emotional pain of someone she mistakenly believed to be the love of her life. So, what exactly was the terrible illness that took away such a bright and shining life? We'll reveal it in this video. But first, let's take a look at the life of this star, a knight in rusty armor.
White bread queen. And, it used to bother us. I used to talk about it.
Karen Carpenter was an American singer and drummer who was part of the iconic duo, the Carpenters, alongside her brother Richard. She was particularly known for her contralto vocals, and her drumming abilities were also rated highly by other musicians and critics. But in the childhood, everything was different. Richard, her brother, was a piano prodigy, and his parents, who took on a car washing business for extra cash, poured money into top tutors and the best piano their money could buy. Karen, meanwhile, was more interested in dance and sport. She was short and stocky compared to her shy and introverted brother. When Richard got into schoolyard fights, it was Karen who would front up to stop them. She'd take on all the roughnecks and make them leave Richard alone, their mother, Agnes, would recall years later. For Karen, it was clear who the star of the family was, and it wasn't her. From the time Richard was a young child, he was figured to be the musical superstar of the family, and everybody else was there to support him. They moved cross-country from Connecticut to California to further his music career, and Karen began playing drums to accentuate her brother's musical career. There were a lot of friends who said she felt second best in the home, that she couldn't live up to what her brother was doing. Karen was 15 when the pair teamed up with bass player Wes Jacobs and formed the Richard Carpenter Trio. As the name suggests, it was Richard's baby. He wrote jazz arrangements, and they enlisted guest singers, with a reluctant Karen occasionally lending her voice on home recordings. But when the trio attended a 1966 audition, it was Karen who sang, impressing session bassist and record label owner Joe Osborne so much, he immediately signed the 16-year-old to a contract. Agnes, it said, was so upset her son was overlooked that she forced the producer to sign Richard up too. Sadly, the record label folded soon thereafter, but it did set things in motion for the future hitmaker. All of these experiences laid the foundation for Karen's future success. Although she had a brilliant and successful career, her personal life, including love and career, was filled with challenges and difficulties. Flashback to the moment when she met Tom Burris. 10 years her senior, Tom presented a problem. He was married. Still, that didn't stop him from proposing 2 months after the pair met in 1980. Rushing through his divorce, the wedding date was set for August 31st that same year, and invitations were sent. It was only then that Karen discovered what, for her, proved a far bigger problem than a not-yet ex-wife. Tom had undergone a vasectomy. Karen longed for children. She couldn't believe her husband-to-be knew this, yet had failed to tell her. Distraught, she told Agnes she wanted to call off the wedding. But with press on the way, as well as friends, family, and a star-studded wedding guest list, Karen made the bed. Karen and she had to lay in it. Turns out it wasn't the only fact Tom had omitted. He'd presented himself as wealthy, but Karen was paying for everything. He was impatient and bad-tempered, something his wife feared would turn physically violent. He was doing something his wife enjoyed, though, and that was getting her prescriptions for thyroid medication, something to speed up her metabolism, in his own name. And these pills were helping her continue to lose weight she could ill afford to keep dropping. Even so, she filed for divorce in 1981, the marriage having taken a huge toll on her already shaky self-esteem. A secret battle. Karen started dieting while still in high school. In 1967, at about 5 feet and weighing 148 pounds, she decided she was tired of being fat, so I went on a diet. Under the doctor's advice, she began the Stillman diet, eating just lean foods and drinking 8 glasses of water a day and avoiding fatty foods, until 1973, when the Carpenters' career peaked. Later that year, she saw a photo of herself at a concert which made her appear heavy. She hired a personal trainer who told her to change her diet, which caused her to build muscle, making her seem heavier rather than slimmer. Karen fired the trainer and began her own weight loss schedule by counting calories. She soon lost about 20 pounds and hoped to lose more. Her eating habits saw her getting food off her plate by offering it to others. By 1975, her weight was just 91 pounds. Some fans had noticed and wrote to her to ask what may be wrong. She refused to publicly say she was ill, and in 1981, she said she was just pooped. Richard later said he and his parents didn't know how to help her. She told Richard that she needed help with her anorexia. She chose to be treated in New York City by psychotherapist Stephen Levenkron. In the 1980s, Karen also started using thyroid replacement medication, which increased her metabolism, and laxatives, which made food pass quickly. Her condition continued to get worse, and she lost even more weight. In September 1982, she was taken to Lenox Hill Hospital in New York, where she was placed on an intravenous drip. The procedure was a success, and she started gaining weight, but this put a strain on her heart. She managed to keep a stable weight for the rest of her life after this point. On January 11, 1983, Karen made her final public appearance at a gathering of past Grammy Award winners. She looked frail, but according to friend Dionne Warwick, she appeared outgoing, telling everyone, "Look at me, I've got an ass." On February 1, 1983, Karen saw her brother for the last time, discussing plans for a new Carpenters album. On February 4, 1983, Karen's mother, Agnes, made the unthinkable discovery. Her daughter was lying dead on the floor of her bedroom. The autopsy report listed cause of death as emetine cardiotoxicity, due to or as a consequence of anorexia nervosa. Karen was just 32 years old. An autopsy ruled out drugs or a medication overdose, describing her death as emetine cardiotoxicity due to or as a consequence of anorexia nervosa. She had a blood sugar level of 1,110 milligrams per deciliter, more than 10 times the average. The coroner said that Carpenter's heart failure was caused by repeated use of ipecac syrup, an over-the-counter emetic used to induce vomiting. The term anorexia nervosa had been coined late in the 19th century. But it wasn't until psychoanalyst Hilde Bruch published a book about the condition in 1978 that people outside of the medical profession began hearing more about it. And as music critics began commenting on her frail appearance, outside of trying to cover Karen up with layers of clothes on stage, nobody close to Karen knew how to deal with the problem. At this point, she wasn't the only one struggling.